Hello, I'm sorry for previous week didn't mention to you that I was going to be absent. I just mentioned to two of you, I think, but anyway, we're gonna be continuing with this and apologize for this. And I think that we are gonna be checking something really interesting related with second language acquisition. And this is going to be the second language learning. Of course, there are going to be different aspects or different perspectives. And more than anything, there are going to be principal aspects or main aspects, that is the word, sorry, for talking about this. We are going to be having two different ways of learning English. That is going to be foreign language learning. So this is going to be, for example, if you're trying to learn English, let's say that you are learning English, but in the US. That means that you are learning this language in the country where its main their first language is going to be English, right? It's like, for example, right here in Mexico, if someone travels to Mexico to learn Spanish, of course it's going to be foreign language learning because they are learning the target language, that in this case is going to be Spanish, in a country where most of the people, or I'm gonna say the 99% of the people, speak Spanish, right? So this is why we have a distinction. This is going to be, we have an example right here. A Pakistani, sorry, student learning Chinese in Pakistan. That is going to be completely different. To second language learning, for example, learning a language that is spoken in the outside community. So, for example, the Pakistani student is learning Chinese in China. Sorry for the letter R that is missing right there. Pero de qué manera we are we are going to be learning this language. Of course, there are going to be different techniques for this, and let's start with some of them because we have the acquisition and the learning. Previous video, we were checking about the way that the babies, for example, start learning the language. Like, for example, when you are older and you don't really have this absorption ability to get everything around you and that you can learn about it. So we have, there is a difference between acquisition and learning. Learning is going to be based on being taught by teachers, so for example, math, pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar, typically in an intentional setting. So, for example, when you're learning, you're conscious that you're learning, right? It's a conscious process. Language learning requires a formal knowledge of explicit rules. So, for example, if you're learning English, it's going to be very important that when every time that you are asking a question in simple present, like for example, do you speak English? Hay una estructura exacta para do you speak English, right? And the results in more knowledge about the language than fluency. Results are more knowledge about the language than fluency. It's more about that you learn everything related with grammar and all that kind of things instead of just focus on maybe some slang, some ways to say some words, etc. And we have the distinction right here that it's going to be the acquisition. The acquisition is when you learn a language naturally by exposing the native, studying natural environment, then you acquire a language. So this is going to be subconscious. It's like when you are with a friend that is always repeating something, and by a subconscious, you start using it, right? Or like, for example, when you travel to Mexico City, that you may know all of them have the Chilango accent. If you're right there, subconsciously, you're going to be acquiring this accent, right? So it occurs very naturally in a not threatening environment, and the results in better fluency and social interaction. This is going to be the difference. Como por ejemplo, cuando estamos en México y estamos aprendiendo inglés, nos van a enseñar gramática, pero cuando estamos adquiriendo el lenguaje, es un proceso subconsciente en el cual nosotros vamos absorbiendo, vamos entendiendo y vamos repitiendo, right? This is going to be the main difference between each of them. Of course, there are going to be acquisition barriers, sorry. Why learning L2 is fundamentally different than L1. So of course, the interaction is not constant. If you're taking English classes daily, it means that, for example, let's say that you take 2 hours of English. And after that, you are in an environment where the 99% of the people speak Spanish, so you are not going to be practicing anymore. So already have a language for communications. And another barrier that exists related with second language acquisition is that many adult learners manage to learn L2 effectively. They do not sound like native speakers. This is because when you get older, it's going to be more difficult to try to get into the language because you are not um, it's very hard for you as an adult to learn new things. So you just get what you got, and you try to improve it, but in the same way that you do it. Instead, on the other hand, if you're a kid or if you're a child and you are in the language, you're going to have plenty more opportunities to get into for example, the accent, to sound like native speakers, right? We have right here, and I'm gonna be asking you, this is going to be an activity very, very simple. I'm gonna be asking you to create a synoptic chart, un cuadro sinóptico. I think that is not the word in Spanish, in English, I think. So don't believe it too much. Pero un cuadro sinóptico sobre lo que vamos a estar checando aquí. Okay? We have some affective factors, like for example, when you are, I'm gonna be reading a little bit and I'm gonna explain. There are other types of acquisition barriers, negative experience that might affect the language learning. So, for example, embarrassment, being ashamed of of your accent, right? Like for example, people from India, all of them have different accent, and this is something that we need to understand. All of the people has accents. We in the north of the country, we have an accent. People from the US, they have an accent. People from the south of Mexico, de Yucatán, de Monterrey, de Sinaloa, todos tenemos acentos. Y algunos de los factores que nos mencionan en una de las investigaciones de Stephen Krashen es que existen algunos factores, unas barreras negativas para aprender el mensaje. Puede ser que seamos burla por nuestro acento. Okay, another one is going to be the lack of empathy with the other culture. Like for example, um, there is an anecdote from a student that I had. I remember that I was teaching English to them. They work in a mine, so I remember that I was teaching English, and one of them was in zero. He actually knows nothing related with the English language, and I just remember that he wasn't really interested in anything related with English. So there was a time that I asked a question. The question was, if you had the opportunity to travel to any place in the world, which one would be? Si tuvieran la oportunidad de viajar a cualquier lugar en el mundo, ¿cuál sería? Y él se quedó en cero, dijo, I don't know, en español, right? It said, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Le dije, ¿piensa en algún lugar? Dijo, no, pues a mi sierra, right? So this kind of situation are going to be completely different to learn the language. So if, for example, if you're not really interested on learning of any other culture in the world, it's going to be very difficult to get another language. And of course, the textbooks, classroom environments, etc. So, for example, if you are conditioning your classroom as an English classroom, it's going to you're going to be having plenty more opportunities to get into the language. These are going to be some of the um, affective factors, and there is an important point right here that children may overcome such factors quickly. Another one, que espero que estén haciendo el cuadro sináptico en este punto, is going to be the focus on method. So, for example, when we have the grammar translation method, the audiolingual method, and communicative approaches, we're going to be checking that all of here. So we have educational approaches. The grammar translation method is going to be treating L2 as an academic subject. What do I mean with this? It's like, for example, si no nos enfocamos en el segundo lenguaje, vamos a decir en este punto, y we're going to be focusing all of this in English. We are going to be focusing, of course, the main target is that they learn English, but how are you going to be doing this? Of course, Podemos convertir la materia de inglés fácilmente en clase de historia, en clase de ciencias, en clase de artes, etc. It's going to be something more interested, and these are going to be something that Stephen Krashen fought for a long time. That, for example, when you are learning a new language, there are going to be different methods. So one of them is going to be the traditional one. The traditional method, it's kind of boring. I don't know if you remember this, when you have to sing the alphabet and you had to spell your name and all that kind of things are not really interesting for the students. So treating L2 as an academic subject is important. Of course, the most traditional approach, vocabulary lists and sets of grammar rules, memorization is encouraged, and read and write and rather than the spoken language. So, for example, criticisms does not focus on how language is used in everyday conversation. Try to consider all of this if you are actually going to be being English teacher, or if you are English teachers in this moment of your life, you're going to be seeing that there is going to be different factors. So maybe the grammar translation method, it could be a good example of using it inside of a classroom. Another one is going to be the audiolingual method. It is a method for foreign language teaching which emphasizes the teaching of listening and speaking before reading and writing. So it emphasizes spoken language. The use of language is a habit that needs a lot of practice. So in this case, for example, we can actually start the topic with an anecdote. Let's say that we are going to be talking about simple past. So we are going to be starting like the class with, for example, the last week or the weekend, I went to the movie theater. There was a movie which I watched, and it was really interesting. And estoy poniendo énfasis en los verbos en pasado para que en este punto, pues los estudiantes en el método audiolingual, sorry, estén más conectados en este punto. So it's going to be more and more interesting if you try to use examples like this one, right? If you're talking about your daily routine, for example, you can talk about your previous day, or you can talk in simple present. For example, oh, today I brush my hair in the morning. I eat my breakfast, all that kind of things. And of course, tenemos aquí el parrot and say, repeat after me. It's going to be very important, the audiolingual method, because you are going to be teaching them. And at the same time, they are going to be pronunciating this word, right? Let's see the other one that is going to be, sorry, the communicative approaches. So this one emphasizes the ability to communicate the meaning of the message instead of concentrating on grammatical perfection. Learners encouraged to take risks. Errors are inevitable. They are learning steps, right? This is a topic that I like to do. Like, I like to play movies to the students, and after that, I like to create movies debates, right? Related with the movie, I create some question and I ask their opinion. This is interesting because they are producing original context. They are not reading something. They are not quoting someone or quoting someone. They are actually creating new words, sentences, and of course, this is important. Try to focus just in the small pieces of papers of errors. If they have errors or mistakes, do not try to be too rude with them. Try just to tell them what is the mistake, but after they finish the language. No hay que interrumpir a los alumnos en esta etapa. And of course, we're gonna be having focus on learner, more concerned with the learning and the nature of the acquisition problems. Shift to how L2 learning takes place, examining the learner's error. So for example, a Spanish person may say, in the room there are two women, indicates learning progress in coping with the new language. Entonces aquí, por ejemplo, el error obviamente va a ser women's, right? A Spanish person may say, in the room there are three women. Entonces, hay algunas cositas como comparativos y superlativos que yo he notado muchísimos errores en esos que dicen more easy en vez de decir easier. So, if you just focus, you can create actually classes related with some of these methods, which are going to be really interesting for you. Of course, we're going to be having the transfer, language transfer. The transfer typically refers to the learning trying to apply rules and forms to the first language into the second language. So, for example, the positive transfer and the negative transfer. We have an example right here. The use of a feature in L1 that is similar to L2 performing in the L2, right? We have, aquí es cuando les ponemos la estructura en the board. ¿Qué vamos a decir? Les voy a enseñar hoy el presente simple. We put the structure right there. There is going to be a very interesting way to teach the language. And of course, another one is going to be the interlanguage. This one is going to be the type of language produced by second or foreign language learners who are in the process of learning a language. For example, the Spanish speakers, they say, she name is Maria, not used by adult speakers of English, does not occur in L1 acquisition by children. It is based of the structure of L1. Aquí es cuando nosotros somos muy literales a la hora de utilizar el lenguaje, entonces el interlanguage puede ser bastante confuso en la adquisición del segundo lenguaje, dado a que tratamos de ser muy literales. He tenido muchos ejemplos de estudiantes que dicen, ¿por qué like significa me gusta y también significa como? Right? So, y ellos utilizan todo esto en esta clase de situaciones y son muy literales a la hora de utilizar el lenguaje. So, when interlanguages stop developing to a more accurate L2 features, it is safe fossilize. Y eso es lo que básicamente ahorita les voy a encargar de tarea. I'm sorry for that. Someone is calling me this moment. Anyway, the interlanguage, it's very important to pay special attention to this and explain a lot about how important is really to do not translate into from the first language. It's important to think in the target language. If we are teaching English, it's important for us to focus on that. That say you're not going to be teaching in English. Don't worry about that. We are just going to be here to speak in this language. So everything that you mention, everything that you learn from here is going to be based in this language, not in your first language. Okay, guys. This is going to be everything for the today's video. Actually, if we were in the classroom, I was putting some videos or examples. So um, I just wait and I hope that you copy this and you create the cuadro sinóptico that I already asked for you the first of the video and put it in your notebook so you to remember it. And beside from this, you're gonna be having an activity on the WhatsApp group. Okay. If you have any doubt, just let me know it and I will see you next week. Have a good one.